Earlier this year, in a rural part of India, armed men working for a group of landlords attacked farm workers, killing 22 of them. It was an all-too-ordinary event in rural India. As members of a high caste, the landowners exercised their control over the lowest caste, the workers, who don't seem to be able to do anything to stop it. Christian Amanpour of CNN, on special assignment for 60 Minutes, went to India to look into the plight of that lowest caste called the Untouchables.
Of all the inhuman labels one human being can put on another, untouchable is about as bad as it gets. And of all the countries that should have long since done away with barbaric discrimination, it's India. The India of Mahatma Gandhi, whose struggle for human rights turned the country from a British colony into the world's largest democracy. But today, 200 million of India's 1 billion people are still considered so low, so unclean, that many of their countrymen won't even touch them or share the same water with them. Their only crime? Being born at the bottom of an ancient Hindu hierarchy that divides everyone along rigid social lines called castes. Sometimes the smallest detail can reveal the whole picture. These untouchable villagers are taking their shoes off, not because they want to, but because they have to. They're about to pass their upper caste neighbors, sitting here in the shade. It's a daily ritual of petty humiliation. The untouchables can only wear their shoes again when they reach their own part of town. Why are you guys always taking off your shoes and putting them back on again?
If we don't take our shoes off, we'll be fired from our jobs. We'd like to stand up to them, but we know we don't have a chance.
Have you ever been punished for anything here?
They've punished us several times. We have to fall at their feet 2 or 3 times.
They have to fall at their feet?
We have to lie on the ground and beg forgiveness.
Oh my goodness. And the discrimination continues at prayer. Untouchables aren't allowed to enter the Hindu temple in this village, so the priest blesses them outside. In tea houses all over India, untouchables have to drink from separate glasses. And they have to wait until someone comes to serve them outside. Even access to clean water is determined according to caste. Untouchables can't use this public well because even their touch would pollute the water, says this upper caste villager.
These customs have been practiced forever, and if the government passed new laws against it, nothing would change, and I personally don't believe it should.
This is where Rangama, an untouchable woman, was forced to get her water. A muddy pond polluted by animal feces. Rangama's encounter with a pig proves just how dirty this water is. Did a lot of people get sick from drinking the bad water?
Yes. And when our children became sick, the doctors blamed us, saying you people are unclean.
After enduring years of this kind of discrimination, Rangama and her friends took up the fight. It began with a small act of defiance. One day, they decided to take clean water from the public well, but they were stopped by infuriated upper caste villagers, and even worse, their own husbands were too afraid to support their cause.
All the women in the village, we decided that if our men didn't help us get clean water, we wouldn't cook for them. And so, 4 days later, they joined our fight.
Rangama and her friends created such an uproar that eventually the upper caste in this village were forced to back down.
Now we have clean water, and water is life.
The caste system is as old as the stones that built this temple. India's segregation is cemented in nearly 3,000 years of religion, not law.
It's one of the most complicated, sophisticated systems of social hierarchy and oppression that the human beings have ever devised.
Professor Sunil Kilnani teaches politics at the University of London. He's the author of an acclaimed book on contemporary India and the complex legacy of the caste system. It's a system that ranks every Hindu from the highest to the lowest according to the work they and their caste perform.
Purity is an extremely important facet of religious observance. For example, the use of fire, which is very common in Hindu rituals, or the use of water. There's a very strong sense of certain objects, certain things being taboo, that you don't come into contact with them.
For instance, the dead. Traditionally, it's the untouchables who prepare the corpses for cremation.
They were those castes who performed the work that no one else in the society would do, such as dealing with the bodies of the dead, etc. This was seen as work that somehow was profaning, that was impure.
The untouchables are considered so unclean that traditionally not even their shadows were supposed to defile these temples, and today they are still relegated to the very worst that life has to offer. Like Narayanama, she's been using her bare hands to clean public toilets for the past 19 years.
They look down at me, and it hurts my soul.
Narayanama's family has been assigned this filthy job for generations, and for generations it's made them physically ill.
No one has ever offered me water when I'm thirsty, and when I want to wash my face, I have to use another well.
Even though 6 years ago the Indian government banned this practice, today about 1 million untouchables still do this job, and ironically, Narayanama's employer is the city government.
No, I don't like this. I don't want this job. I would leave it if they gave me another one.
As long as toilets need cleaning, streets need sweeping, and the trash needs to be carted away, the job will be assigned to the untouchables. In big cities, they may escape the abuses they endured in the small villages, but often their only choice will be to settle in slums, where no one else would even think of living. Henry Tiffine is a local human rights worker.
Oh, good Lord. Is this the toilet river?
You see the man walking across it?
Yeah. He's walking basically through an open sewer.
Yes, open sewer. This is all open sewer.
Kids are playing in this sewer.
That's normal. That's normal.
That's normal.
That's normal here.
That's normal for an untouchable.
Yes. And these are the sanitary workers of the town.
The sanitary workers of the town? What, the people who clean the latrines? Who clean the latrines,
who clean the streets.
Now that is truly disgusting, the latrine business. I mean, how people can accept to clean public toilets with their hands is beyond me.
And increasingly, India's 200 million untouchables are resisting through the power of the ballot and political protest. And it's changing the face of India.
Caste as a form of social imprisonment is beginning to break down, I think. It's beginning to break down. People are beginning to assert their rights. They are beginning to say, well, look, constitutionally, this is illegitimate. These are my rights as an Indian citizen.
They are rights that were enshrined in India's constitution, which banned discrimination against untouchables. Progress has been difficult, but now, for the first time in history, an untouchable has managed through his own efforts to become president of India, though the office is largely symbolic. But it's the local untouchable leaders like Dr. Krishna Swami who are really shaking up the system by building a political movement on centuries of pent-up anger. Is India a democracy for all?
No, it is a fake democracy. We are fighting for our self-respect.
Some local officials have been killed. Are you not afraid?
There are thousands and thousands of people are ready for this fight.
But the upper caste is fighting back. These young men are furious at the Indian government for increasing the number of sought-after civil service jobs that the government reserves for untouchables. It's India's own war over quotas and affirmative action.
What's at stake is I think, whether the upper castes are going to continue to maintain their privileged positions, or whether they're going to have to cede some room and some place to those from the lower castes who want a slice of the cake, really.
Almost every time untouchables assert their rights, it provokes violence in the cities and especially in the countryside, where upper caste landlords still reign over their untouchable laborers. That's what happened in the village of Bate one night. More than 200 upper caste men, armed with guns and knives, attacked this village. They went from hut to hut, killing anyone they could find, even children. And all these villagers had been asking for was what they considered a fair wage, $1 worth of rice a day for their work in the fields. This is what they got for their trouble, unspeakable horror. The bodies of 58 villagers haphazardly sprawled where their killers found them. Whole families were murdered, including Parwati Devi's son and his wife. Only her grandson survived, hidden in his dead mother's dress.
There was no reason to kill my son. He never argued with anyone. Like all of us, he just worked in the fields for his daily wage.
A pittance of a wage paid by the landlords who own these fields and who now are accused of leading the slaughter. Mohan Chaudhry is the upper caste village priest.
We never start the violence. It's the untouchables who pick the fight. And the landlords just retaliate.
So in this part of India, untouchables are arming themselves. Only women are allowed in this militia. They're being trained to shoot because they are most at risk.
Nobody else will protect us. That's why I carry my own gun. Recently, a young girl was kidnapped and raped by the landlords. There's more violence every day, and the police don't help us.
Sister Sudha is trying to help, but she uses the law. She's an attorney and a Catholic nun who chooses to live with and defend the very lowest castes.
When you see untouchables, men or women, cleaning human excrement with their hands, being forced to drink from separate cups in tea rooms, having to take off their shoes when they walk past an upper caste, is there a sense of outrage?
Oh, sure. It's really a curse on humanity, the whole caste system.
Is there any escape?
Impossible. See, in India, everyone knows his caste.
So no matter how well you do in life,
Yes.
you will always be considered
Yes.
untouchable,
Yes,
unclean,
yes,
and less than human.
right.
The untouchables' burden has been carried from generation to generation. Now, Narayanama, the toilet cleaner, pleads that it not be passed on any further.
All I'm begging for is that my children don't inherit this job. It should end with me.
What does the government say about all of this? They don't want to talk about it.